How do you ask Mexicans and Muslims to ignore a lot of the rhetoric, Haitians to ignore a lot of the rhetoric that he said about them that is dangerous, that has villainized them, that has demonized them?
Well, I would say,
hey, you guys hanging in there? This election cycle is cray-cray. I have never seen a more wild election cycle than this one. Comment below if this is the most wilding out election you've ever seen. I mean, seriously, this is nuts. It has everything. It has romance. I mean, you got Waltz and Kamla and their lovers, and it's got romance, it's got assassinations, it's got conspiracy theories. I mean, I'm ready for a 10. This movie is, I don't know. Okay. But Lara Trump, as the kids say, came correct. She did. She came correct with receipts. I didn't even know what that meant until just a few months ago, but I'm now hip with the kids. Okay, don't say that. My daughter's like, Mom, don't say that. That makes you absolutely uncool. And she's 8. She knows. She knows what's up. She knows what's up. Okay, let's watch this, though, because I was like, Lara Trump is on fire. She is absolutely amazing. What do you think? These people wanted to completely go after her. Charlamagne, I just messed that up. Charlamagne the God wanted to get her on a gotcha, but nope. She had it. She was rolling with this. Let's watch this.
Everybody, it's DJ NV, Jess Hilarious, Charlamagne the God. We are the Breakfast Club. Jess is on maternity leave, so Lauren LaRosa is filling in. And we got a special guest in the building. We have Lara Trump. Welcome.
good morning.
How you feeling this morning?
I'm feeling great. How are you guys?
Blessed, black, and highly favored. Good morning.
There you go. Yeah.
Because when you hear people like Chuck Schumer say things like Trump is a threat to democracy, but then you're sitting next to him yucking it up, why would you be yucking it up with somebody who you consider a threat to democracy?
Well, you have to ask yourself that question, don't you?
That's exactly right. See, this is how duplicitous so many of those people are. And that's why they hate Trump, because he has exposed them. He's exposed them for being so two-faced. These are people who were partying with him, who loved him. And then when they feel like he's going to expose who they really are, the problems with the government and the problems with big corporations, big pharma, all the big that are trying to control us, they didn't like him. Then they turned on him real quick. Oh, he's a threat to democracy, because he knows their dirty little secrets. He knows them all. These are people who loved him prior to him running, right?
Yeah. Maybe it's all scare tactics. Maybe it's a lot of fear mongering. Charlamagne. What I can tell you is I know Donald Trump. I have known him for 16 years, and Chuck Schumer's known him a lot longer than I have. And I think he knows full well he's not a threat to democracy. And you don't even have to take my word for it. Look at what he did when he was in the White House. Like, there was never any threat to democracy when he was in the White House.
There was
and
an
I would
attempted
actually
coup of the country.
Well, that you can argue that a lot of different ways. Peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard is not an attempted coup. What was a coup was when they replaced Joe Biden with Kamala Harris, who was not elected by anyone to run for president.
Oh, boom. She's dropping the bombs now. That's exactly right. It's so amazing to me. Well, it's actually not amazing. It's very narcissistic, because what narcissists do, I've studied a lot on narcissists, unfortunately and fortunately. As an acting teacher, I look at a lot of different types of characters and study behavior. And narcissists, what they do is they project and they gaslight. So whatever they're doing, they say you're doing, because then that can create this sort of cognitive dissonance where you're like, wait, how could we be doing that if he's doing that? You get what I'm saying? Clear as mud. But that's what they do. And so they say Trump is a threat to democracy, and yet they're an actual threat to democracy. What they did by just propping Kamla up there is not democratic at all. Not at all. It's not how things are run. She had an 8% approval rating in California, her home state. And yet they just propped her up because they knew she probably wouldn't pass the test to be running for office. So what they do, they just let Joe Biden ride it out all the way until it was too late and then just insert her.
14 million people who voted for Joe Biden to be the nominee for the Democrat Party. And if you want to talk about a real threat to democracy, I would argue that.
That wasn't a
But
coup,
Laura,
though.
did anyone die when that happened though?
Well, no, they're not even that.
Well,
she was vice president. So
the only person who died was a woman who was there actually very supportive of Donald Trump on that
But
day.
that's still a life loss. I'm just saying
No, it's terrible.
the
Look,
comparison is a bit.
We could go down the line of people dying in a lot of different circumstances, and I would argue that list could get very long for the Democrats as well. But
she was vice president. She was on the ballot. People did vote for her. The delegates did vote for her at the DNC.
But would you, as I'm going to assume a Democrat voter for a long time,
Unaffiliated.
Hold on. How come we're not allowed to even talk about the injuries from the, you know what, the jab? We're not even allowed to talk about that. You know, I could get in trouble on YouTube even talking about that. And yet a lot of people died. A lot of people lost limbs. And that was like a mandate so they could keep their job. And I know actual people that this happened to. It even harmed my my stepmom and my dad big time. And they're both gone now. They both died this year. So a lot of people have died on their watch, is what I'm saying, in the Biden-Harris administration. What about all of the soldiers? How come whenever anybody mentions January 6th, how come they don't mention also the 13 soldiers that died in Afghanistan and didn't need to? What about the 310,000 missing children? What about all the people that are being harmed right now because of the open border? Not just those 310,000 people. That number is growing daily. What about all those people that are a direct result to the open border, to their policies on how they pulled out of Afghanistan? What about all the soldiers who have PTSD and then took their life because they couldn't handle the fact that the Biden-Harris administration pulled out of Afghanistan in the manner they did after they had been fighting that war for so long? It was a disgrace, but they never mentioned that. So if we're going to do a tit for tat, I mean, come on, fair is fair. You got to mention
unaffiliated voter.
Yeah.
If you were a Democrat, maybe a Democrat here, would you guys, if you had the option to vote for someone other than Joe Biden to be the representative for you on the Democrat ticket, have chosen Kamala Harris to be that person?
Yes.
I would have chosen Kamala Harris.
Out of really? Interesting.
Yes. I mean, I was a person that was calling for Joe Biden to step down for a very long time. And I think that there's, you know, when Joe Biden made a statement last year, he said there's about 50 of us that could beat Donald Trump. I was like, well, line them all up then. And I definitely had her as one of the people.
Even though
Really? So what is it? And let me know if you're a Kamala lover. Let me know, what is it that you love about her? I know a lot of people are really amped up on the reproductive rights, which is a terrible name, by the way, because it's the opposite of that. It's not producing anything. But irregardless, that is, I always say regardless, but some people say irregardless. That was the first time I tried irregardless, but that's not a word, I don't think. Okay, anyway, you can fact check me on that. It's left up to the states. Just leave it up to the states. That's the only thing I hear that everyone's so riled up about with Kamala, is that she's for reproductive rights. Okay, we'll take it up with the states. You're good to go. And anyway, they're not turning away anyone in all 50 states if it's for the life of the mother, rape, or incest. So I really don't understand why that is the big hot topic. There's a lot of other horrible things that can happen in life. Why are you aiming for that one thing?
though she dropped out whenever she ran the first time before her home state voted, before Iowa, and she was polling solo, you still would have given her the shot. And I mean, if you think back to at Kamala Harris, when Joe Biden, before he got pushed out of this position, before he really kind of took it up a notch with this campaign, people were saying Kamala Harris is the insurance policy for Joe Biden because she really is not doing a great job as vice president. I mean, she
isn't. And why is it that she only calls upon her time as a prosecutor and never what she's done as vice president. Why is that? And also, why was it okay for her and the entire mainstream media to gaslight all of us when people were worried about Joe Biden's condition for a long time? And then finally, after the debate, it was like, oh, everyone, it's okay for us all to admit that he's not doing well. But if you had noticed that before, you were told that you were wrong and that you were watching a deep fake and all these things. I mean, that's gaslighting. Again, that's what narcissists do. They try to get you to not believe your very eyes. We saw it with our own eyes, and yet we were gaslighted. It's a deep fake and this and that. And now they're trying to say that about Trump because he danced at a rally. I've watched all the rallies, and I'll tell you what happens if you don't know, if you're believing by chance that he just spaced out and danced for a half an hour at a rally, because that's what SNL and everybody's saying, MSDNC. No, he wasn't dancing for a half an hour at a rally because he spaced out. It's because sometimes people need doctors in the crowd. And because he has empathy, he doesn't just continue on. He's like, hang on, just take your time. It's all good. And he plays Ave Maria and like some other fun music to lighten the mood and to give that person positive energy. That is amazing. That is an amazing person to do that instead of just, oh, well, they're going to handle it. Let me just continue with my rally. Instead, he puts it on hold. And he says every time this happens, because it's bound to happen in a large crowd, right? The problem is a lot of times I don't want to group the entire left together because I know a lot of really good people on the left. But sometimes in that group of people, it's like you hear of people passing out at concerts, people that are supporting Kamla, right? At concerts, passing out all the time, and nobody stops, nobody helps. People are like screaming for water. Nobody even stops. So Trump is the opposite of that. He actually stops everything. He plays music for them and like does his little silly dance because it's just positive energy. But somebody who lacks empathy would never know that. And also people who never see the full rally, who are only watching SNL or who are only watching the MSDNC clips.
Well, I'm a person who voted. I voted for that ticket because of her.
Interesting.
Yeah.
A lot of people did.
Yeah. Well, we've got a ticket coming up very soon and a vote very soon. It's early voting in a lot of places right now. But to answer your question, I know we kind of got sidetracked, but in politics, none of us in the family had obviously any experience in politics, but I had heard my father-in-law a lot, very upset about what he felt was wasteful. He felt like we weren't focused on America, that we were sending jobs overseas, businesses overseas, that the federal government was bloated and overspending. And he said, this isn't right. This isn't the America that I grew up in and that I think we should, have as a great future for this country. And if you go back to an Oprah interview he did, I believe in the 80s, she asked him, would you ever run for president? And he said, only if things got so bad, I felt I had no other choice. And I feel like he thought the country really was on a bad path and he wanted to help bring it back. And so right before his famous golden escalator ride, we actually all sat down as a family. And I'll never forget this because it was one of those moments where looking back, I say, gosh, he really had such good insight into what was about to happen. We all sat down as a family for dinner and he talked us through, I want to do this. This is definitely something that is real. But if I do this the right way, if I do what is needed and I call the people out who need to be called out and expose the things that need to be exposed, they're going to come after us. And it's not just me, it's the whole family. And I think you guys need to really appreciate that. And I need you to understand that and make sure everybody feels good about it. And of course we were like, well, yeah, like how bad could it be?
It's so true. My dad recently died. My dad served in the Vietnam War. My dad was a really good man. He was a self-made man. He grew up poor, dirt poor, built himself up from nothing all by himself. And then by the grace of God, got on the Republican ticket to run for Congress when I was 2 years old. As a matter of fact, the shirt is right here. I've always been an independent, by the way, but yes, I come from a Republican family. And here's the shirt this is the shirt that he had it says Hutcheson for Congress. He almost won. But back in the, cave days when I was 2 years old and when he ran for office, what happened, he was running against Pat Schroeder, and he had said that he wanted to budget for the welfare. He just wanted a budget for it. That's all. He wanted to know how much money was going here, how much was going there. So Pat Schroeder ran a smear campaign on him at the 11th hour and said, oh, look at Gene Hutcheson. He doesn't care about single mothers. He wants to take away milk from single moms. And it crushed him. And he didn't have time to retaliate because it wasn't the internet back then. Now you just are censored right on the internet, but at least you have an opportunity. You have an opportunity to retaliate. And so from a very young age, I saw how that destroyed him. It was horrifying. And then years later, when I'm in 6th grade, I have this social studies class, and I'm sitting there and the teacher asks, okay, so what would be better? To teach a man to fish or to give a man a fish? And everybody in my class was like, give a man a fish. And I was like, well, teach a man to fish. And they're like, oh, what? I can't believe she said that. And I was like, why? Wouldn't you want to teach him how to fish? Because then he's not dependent on you for more fish. He can just fish when he's hungry. And I was like, I don't understand why everyone's so like aghast, And my little 6th grade friend turned to me and she said, well, that's because your parents don't care about people. They're Republicans. I was like, what? And so I came home and I talked to my mom and dad. I was like, what, you guys don't care about people because you're Republicans? What does that even mean? I didn't even know what Republican or Democrat was at the time, surprisingly, because my dad was involved in politics and I didn't even know. But they kept me, pretty separate from it. And here they were volunteering at the 5 Points Center and all these things, community center, which is, 5 Points is a very gentrified area in Denver now. And it was a very bad area when I was a kid. And my mom would volunteer there all the time. They would be generous and giving all the time to all sorts of things. So it was very confusing to me. I was like, why this little friend of mine is telling me don't care about people? So my friend was already being indoctrinated at that time. And people were already turning against me at that time, just because my dad built himself up from absolutely nothing and ran for Congress and happened to make it on the ticket by just grit and intelligence. So I see what they can do to people, what politics can do to people. And that was 100 years ago. So now, and my dad wasn't a multimillionaire either. And they just tear you down. But if you're a multimillionaire, of course they tear you down, right?
But the foresight he had into what we've seen happen to this man, and I don't think anyone can argue if his name wasn't Donald Trump and he had never run for politics. I mean, you would never have seen any of the crazy things happen to him that have. So that was sort of where we all kind of got our intro into politics. Mm-hmm. I didn't become part of things really until I flew down to North Carolina in August of 2016 for a rally with my father-in-law to my hometown in Wilmington. And one thing led to another. And he told me that I was going to be responsible for winning him my home state of North Carolina in the 2016 election. And as a person who had no idea what I was doing in politics, I said, I better learn pretty quickly and get to work. And so that's what I did.
I wonder what he learned from the first time he ran.
Hold on, so I just want to know, at that dinner, did y'all say, you know what? Well, let's put all our dirt on the table right now because they're going to be coming at you. Press is going to try anything that you guys have ever done. If you guys have stolen a Snicker bar from a store, they're going to come at that. Was that the dinner where you said, well, let's put everything on the table so we know what they're going to be attacking, or that never happened?
I'll be really honest. We really didn't have a lot to put on that table. And if you think that I'm lying, you really believe that anybody in the Trump family with the Trump last name wouldn't have had any and everything exposed by now? No, I mean, I think we naively thought, look, if you have good intentions and you do the right things and you're a good person, then, if Donald Trump became president, I think we all thought after he won in 2016, oh, well, then all the craziness will stop. Everybody will rally behind the person who's president of the United States, because we should all want our president to be successful. That is success for America. And obviously we were very wrong about that.
What is he?
See, and that's what is so beautiful about Donald Trump, because he's willing to quite literally put his life on the line for us. And I know how ugly it can be. I'm an artist, and the most loving, inclusive people will attack you in a hot minute and call you the worst names if you care about kids not being trafficked, if you care about people not having human trafficking, sex trafficking, if you care about the fentanyl on the street, you'll be gaslit. My business has almost been stripped away from me, and I barely even speak on politics. I started this channel separate from my acting studio and everything only because I'm trying to like remain peaceful, right? And I want there to be conversation. I don't want to just be attacked and have everything stripped away from me just because I want peace, just because I want to provide for my daughter, just because I want all people of all colors to succeed. I mean, it's absolutely crazy making what they will say about you when you care about these things.
You know, he recently was talking about tariffs and how he wants to apply tariffs to countries who are, you know, it's really awful to see how so many jobs, factories have gone overseas.
Mhm.
We want to see made in the USA on more. And you saw that happening when he was in the White House. You saw more people employed in this country than we've ever had employed in the history of America. You had more money in your pocket. You had inflation.
Yes, please let me know. Did you have more money in your pocket from 2016 to 2020? In 2016, I had my daughter, by the way. And it was really funny because as the election results were coming in is when I went into labor. So it was a very exciting time. It was like a movie. And I go into the hospital and everyone really rude, by the way. Here I am, a pregnant lady giving birth. And the nurses and people, everybody except my doctor, thank God. But all the nurses and all the different people around the hospital were like, oh my gosh, it's terrible. Trump is going to win, except for one nurse. And he happened to be a Black man. And he came in when Trump won and he put the newspaper on my bed. And he's like, did you hear the news? And I thought he was going to be all upset the way that other people were, but he had this giant smile on his face. And I was like, what, Trump won? He's like, yes, Trump won. I said, you're happy? He said, I'm so happy. And I was like, oh my gosh, it was like a gift from God. And then those years were the best years ever. I was able to raise my daughter. I felt safe. I was making money. My students were all making money. Everybody was thriving and happy. And then the pandemic hit and we were still doing okay in 2019. And then me and my friends and different people were starting to really feel it in 2021. We're like, why are we feeling it worse now? And then 2022. And then it was like getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And now we know why. The Biden-Harris administration made things horrible. And the people gaslighting us to say that the economy is great, why don't they help the rest of us? Because for majority of us, the economy is not good. Even my multimillionaire clients are like holding tight to their money. Some of them have sold their big homes and moved into smaller homes. They're still surviving wonderfully, right? But they've downsized. So tell me, were you doing better 2016 to 2020 or from 2020 to now?
Inflation at 1.9%. It was a very different feeling when he was in the White House. And I think that's why you're seeing such great support for this man. You don't have to love everything he says. You don't have to love everything he posts on X or Truth Social or whatever. But you do have to be honest that your life probably felt a lot better with Donald Trump in the White House. And I think that that's one of the reasons that he's working so hard because he knows he can do the job. He did it one time before.
Question: why are tariffs considered good business when we know that it's going to cause the cost of typical American household items to go up significantly?
Well, he explained
like a bunch of
this.
economists say that it'll cost the average American $2,600 extra a year.
I think that he explained this the other day when he was sitting down with, I believe it was Bloomberg, that look, the reality is that it's going to force people to bring their companies back to the United States. And he really believes that.
But it's going to hurt a lot of American citizens in the process of that, because it's not like these companies are going to turn up and
I don't
change
think
over,
so.
come over back overnight.
Well, let's talk. I mean, if you want to talk about hurting American citizens, the first thing that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris did, their first executive order in the White House, shutting down the Keystone XL pipeline. That was something that gave us our energy independence. It was so bad for America. That drove up gas prices. That caused inflation to continue to go sky high.
Yep.
It enriched our adversaries like Russia and Iran because now they were supplying oil for the rest of the world instead of the United States. It put us in such a weakened state. So, you know, we want to drill, baby, drill. That's what Donald Trump always says. We have so much liquid
But
gold.
Biden has drilled more than Trump.
Underneath our, well, why do you shut down the Keystone XL pipeline?
That's exactly it. I love that. Drill, baby, drill. It's so true. This is what some people don't understand, is that when we're using all of our natural resources, that is what makes gas less expensive. That's even what makes groceries less expensive. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts because the farmers are being regulated so severely. Farmers aren't really allowed to farm anymore. Big ag is taking over. Bill Gates owns most of the farmland in the United States now. China owns most of the farmland in the United States now. And then the small family farms are being completely squashed. Watch my other video that I did on this, on the price ban thing and why it doesn't work. Watch that video because Trump talks to, we're part of Trump's team, right? Talks to farmers. And I come from a farming family. And so this is very near and dear. When all these moving parts are punishing American farmers and eliminating natural resources here, that's what drives costs up. Okay. So this opportunity economy that Kamala keeps talking about, where we just give more money. No, that doesn't generate money at all. And then not helping the businesses that have been suffering, but only brand new businesses. That just makes people more dependent on government. And the more people are dependent on government, the more the government controls everything. That is a danger to our democracy.
I have no idea, but Biden has drilled more than Trump.
Strategic petroleum reserves, which are actually supposed to be used for emergency situations, for war times. The things
has Biden drilled more than Trump?
I don't believe that's true.
Yeah, that's a fact.
Where?
You can look it up. He's drilled more than Trump.
Okay. Yeah. I don't believe that's true at all. And
it is.
Okay. Yeah. But Donald Trump was obviously a proponent of being energy independent and energy dominant as a country. And we are not right now. And that puts us in a very weakened state. And you would not have seen the issue in the Middle East right now. And you likely wouldn't have seen the issue with Russia and Ukraine had those countries, had Iran not had the funding and the money coming in from the oil, had Russia not had the funding and the money coming in from the oil. It's a terrible thing to see. And so, I think that you can look at a lot of things and second guess them with Donald Trump and say, well, what about this? What about that? Think about how it felt. Think about how much more money you had in your pocket.
Yes.
Think about so many people were finally able to go on a vacation for the first time when he was in the White House. And those are real tangible things. And right now, life is very hard for so many people in this country. I travel all over the place and I constantly am in airports and restaurants, and I constantly am approached by people who say, I cannot afford not to vote for Donald Trump. And I think they really mean that. And whether you look at our southern border, the influx of people who've come in this country, it's detrimental to so many aspects of our society. It's something that we've spent so much money on here in New York, $12 billion over 3 years. It's costing the city of New York to house illegal immigrants. And so I think whenever push comes to shove and we're looking at this election right now, there's so many people who might not love everything Donald Trump's ever said, but they certainly want to go vote for him because they want their life back. They want more money in their pocket and they want a safer community.
Exactly right. And again, it's like a lot of people are gaslighting right along with Kamala because they want to support her. So they're like, yes, and they're gaslighting us. I mean, I live in Denver, Colorado, very near Aurora, and the Venezuelan gangs are real. Like you see tags all over the city of the TDA. And then they say, oh, it's not a big deal. And look at Trump trying to spew this terrible rhetoric. No, it's true. And we should care about that. And then they say only 3 apartments were taken over, apartment complexes, not even 3 units. 3 units would be too much, but 3 entire apartment buildings were taken over by Venezuelan gangs. I mean, that's insane. 3 complexes were taken over by a Venezuelan gang, and the Kamala camp is okay with that. Not only are they okay with that, they gaslight anybody who doesn't like that. How is that helping the United States? How?
I'd say that,
Hold on real quick. I do want to just note that inflation is down, though.
It's coming down.
It's like the 2.5%.
It's coming
just that
down,
the
but it's
prices are
not
still
down.
so elevated.
But wage growth has not kept up with the rise in inflation, and it's causing people to really hurt around this country. They really can't make their basic ends meet right now.
I mean, inflations are down, but the prices are up. I mean, whose fault is that? That's more so the corporations than it is government.
Prices are, say that again?
Inflation is down, but the prices are up.
Inflation is not down nearly enough. You can bring
2.5.
No, see, and then that's the other thing is that Kamala likes to blame the companies. Well, it's the price gougers. No, the reason why people start charging higher prices is because they're trying to make up for all this stuff happening and also lost wages and lost everything. I mean, I had to raise my rates and now I'm discounting people and giving 50% off sales because people can't afford it. But it's like, I can't afford it. I can't afford it. When my students and my client base is hurting, I'm hurting. And when multimillionaires are hurting, I'm hurting. So when you keep punishing corporations, what they do is just lay off people. It doesn't create an opportunity economy. It's opposite of that. It creates less opportunity. That's what people don't understand. Oh, I get mad. Okay.
5%.
You can bring inflation down significantly, and I think if we had an energy independent country, it would really help.
Is that 2.5%?
Yeah.
I was going to ask, a lot of people feel that Trump is racist. And what do you say to that? In 73, of course, it was when he got sued for not renting to African Americans, and 89 when he took out the ad in the paper. And even saying Obama wasn't born here and show his birth certificate. And this.
And what about all of the Black colleges that he has given so much money to? What about all the apartment complexes in the Bronx that a lot of Black people say that he has supported them and helped them? What about all the employees that he has? What about this next video that I'm going to do and show you where he goes into a barbershop in the Bronx and he's awesome? And what about him being with Rosa Parks? And all these different on and on and on and on and on. And what about Whoopi Goldberg? Why did she work for him as a stand-up comedian 4 times? She said this on The View. She worked for him 4 times at his casino if she thought he was a racist. No, she didn't think he was a racist until he ran for president. And you might say, well, that's because he wasn't racist until then, or we only saw it that. No, somebody has their character and you see their character before then. The reason they came up with this notion is because they knew it would divide Americans. They knew it's the worst thing to call you to be a racist. I've had friends just say, well, I can't talk to you anymore because if you're going to align with a racist, well, Trump isn't a racist. Well, that's just not true. It is true. He's not. And watch this next video that I post on him at the barbershop. It's amazing.
There's numerous things. So what do you say to that?
Well, I think that's ridiculous. I've known this man for 16 years. And, you can go to each of those incidents and, there was never any proof of anything with the houses that you're talking about.
He settled out for that though, right?
Yeah, they settled that. And there was no admission of anything there. Right. Central Park 5, there were so many people. You had a Democrat, DA who prosecuted the guys, and they admitted to it. There were a lot of people in New York
they were
at that time.
exonerated and freed, and there was never an apology, never sorry, never a my bad.
However, I will say that you have to look at somebody and what they actually have done.
Right.
And Donald Trump really was very beneficial to the Black community when he was in the White House. Mm-hmm. I will say I've never seen this man say a racist thing. I think the attacks are fairly. Why is that funny, Charlamagne?
I'm just like, it's hysterical. But
no, Charlamagne,
because people act like there's no such thing as Google, or we don't have TV, we don't have radio.
What is it that you think that he said?
The Google, by the way, is sponsoring Kamla. And so you don't think that, God bless Google. We're on Google right now with YouTube, right? Okay, Google, we love you. But we also know that you endorse Kamla. And we also know that there is censorship because all these platforms can say, well, they're privately owned, so we can censor. Okay, great. Well, then you're not going to get all the information if you're only watching censored content. If you never watch him in its entirety, he has nuances and he has jokes. Even at the what was it? I just completely forgot. Al Smith dinner. He even said, he's like, these jokes are going to be fact checked. That's where we've come to in America, where you can't even joke. There's no nuance anymore. And because he doesn't follow a script, they always attack him for that too, because he speaks off the cuff. When you speak off the cuff and you speak from your heart and you speak organically and authentically, everything isn't always perfect because you're not doing a recitation of a script. That's what Kamla does. It's just a script. It's a robot. It's basically AI. If you're a human being, you're going to have nuance. You're going to start a sentence and interrupt yourself and do the weave like he does, where he talks about one thing and then he tells a story and then he comes back and ties it all up at the end. That's human nature. That's interesting. But when you're reading an AI script, it doesn't have any of that nuance. That's what Kamala does. And also, that's what a lot of conservatives see. We don't all talk the same. I'm not even conservative, but I'm becoming more and more conservative. I've always been independent. But the thing is, what I've noticed about the conservatives is that nobody has a script. So there's a ton of nuance and everybody's different and everybody's authentic. Whereas with Kamala's camp, it's a script. Everyone's copying, pasting the exact meme. It's a script. And yet they say that we're a cult, but they're reading this script and they all sound identical. The thing about us, when they say, oh, Trump's all over the place, it's because there's no script. It's because we're moment to moment. There is a through line and there's consistency with what we're saying, but we all speak our own language in our own authentic way. Might have similarities, but it's not all identical. It's not copy and paste.
Mexico sends its people. They're not sending their best. They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime. They're rapists.
And he's talking about the people coming here illegally. But see, because we've all been gaslit so much, we think that it's fine to enter the United States illegally now, and that should be fine. He's specifically talking about the illegal people. Remember, his wife is an immigrant. She came over here, though, and did it the proper way. I know a lot of people who've done that, and that's amazing. We're just talking specifically about the illegal people. And even there are some good people that do it illegally, and that's dangerous. And that's why 310,000 kids are missing. And that's what we have to stop.
Morning, a bitter backlash after President Trump referred to Haiti and African nations as S-hole countries during a meeting on immigration Thursday.
This remark by the President of the United States smacks.
Well, look, he does. He just speaks. He speaks from the heart, but also, again, like with nuance. And the thing is, if these countries were in such great shape, they wouldn't come here. That's the thing. And as my dad and my stepmom were dying, they had Haitians take care of them. And guess what? I'm not saying all Haitians are like this, okay? But these Haitians robbed us. They robbed us completely. They even beat up my mom and dad. I mean, it's awful. And they came in illegally, and it's this whole scandal. But if I say that, I'm a racist. It's just actual fact. Are all Haitians like that? No. Are criminals like that? Yes, criminals are criminal. They're not always the nicest people. That's what we have to put a stop to. Because people like my mom, stepmom, and my dad got harmed by it, and lots of other people, unfortunately. And then the system is so broken and rigged in their favor, there's no hope. You could say, oh, we'll just sue them or what. Okay, after we just lost all that money, sue them with what? With our magic lawyer that's going to work for free? No.
Of blatant racism.
Here's what I'll say. You know, this is a man who, as I said in the beginning, was beloved by so many people in this country.
Mm-hmm.
And he was friends with everybody. You
A lot of celebrities.
Jesse Jackson, by the way,
Please
his
please
Rainbow
don't do that. He
Coalition.
had black friends. That's not going to work.
No. He let them stay rent free in one of his buildings. The Rainbow Coalition, because he felt like at the time that was a very important thing. You can go pick apart somebody.
And I'm tired of that too. Don't say you had black fans. That's not going to work here. You know, that actually is the point. You're not racist when you have black friends. You're not racist. One of my dear friends, her dad is black, her mom is white. She's called racist all the time because she wants Trump's policies. Her family's called racist all the time because they are pro-Trump. And so they're not supposed to count. It's like, I'm not racist. My dad is black. I'm half black, whatever it is. I'm not, right? I'm not racist, but I'm not half black. But you get my point. That is the point. If you are not racist, if you are friends with people, if you are kind with people, if you employ people, it does count. That is actually what it is to not be racist. They're like, oh, no, that doesn't count. And if you're not racist and you don't admit that you're racist, then you're really racist. See, that is gaslighting at its finest. And that's what they have been doing for the past 3.5 years. That is divisive and dangerous.
It's a traditional talking point to attack Republicans, to call them racist.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at the things that he wants for this country, he wants every person to be successful. He wants Black Americans to be successful, Hispanic Americans to be successful, women to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
And he worked that way when he was in the White House. And whether you want to talk about actually funding in perpetuity historically Black colleges and universities, whether you want to talk about the First Step Act that allowed 30,000 nonviolent felons to be released from prison, who the 1994 crime bill actually put in prison. These are things that really have, I feel like, spoken to a lot of people, but more so than anything, the economy right now is such that I don't care who you are. It is hurting you, and it is something that he wants to fix. He wants every American to have their shot at the American dream. And, you know, I hate that that is the constant knee jerk is Donald Trump is a racist. Donald Trump is a racist. I can tell you he wants every person to be successful. He'll work for every American equally. He did that the first term when he was president, and he'll do it again.
That is exactly it. That talking point of, oh, he's racist, it just shuts down all communication. It's dangerous. Calling him Hitler, you don't think incites hate? That's horrible. This interview is remarkable. I'll link it in the description.
Like, how do you ask Mexicans and Muslims to ignore a lot of the rhetoric, Haitians to ignore a lot of the rhetoric that he said about them that is dangerous, that has villainized them, that has demonized them?
Well, I would say anyone who's coming to this country illegally, he's very against, and every American should be very against. If you're an American citizen, Donald Trump doesn't care your religion. He doesn't care what you look like. He will work for you, and he wants to make this country safe for you. We should all want a secure southern border. A lot of
Exactly. And what about the parents who've lost their children because of the open border? Not just the children. I mean, it's horrible. The 300,000 plus children that have been lost. But what we don't even know. We don't know if they're alive. We don't know. That's huge. That's a genocide. If those kids are, deceased now, I mean, that's horrible. But what about the ones that we actually do know for a fact were murdered by illegal immigrants who have come over here, murderers? What about those parents who've lost their children because of the open border, a direct result of the open border? These people were released back in. They were caught, detained, murderers, and then released back into the country. What about that? Why is that never brought up? Why is it only January 6th, January 6th, January 6th? Because that's the script. If people really talked about what this Biden-Harris administration has done, and Kamla has no regrets. She said there's not a thing that comes to mind that she would have done differently. Not a thing. When many Americans have lost their lives on her watch, and also immigrants. So having a closed border, properly vetting people, helps not only the American citizens that are already here, but for people that are wanting to migrate here legally, it helps them too, because it creates a safer environment for them to come over and become legal citizens. But when it's just a free-for-all, yes, you're automatically also welcoming in a lot of criminals. When you have asylum cities, you're welcoming in criminals. You don't think criminals pay attention to this? You don't think they also watch the news and pay attention? I mean, I look on my Ring app, that shows you what's going on in the neighborhood. There are gunshots every single solitary night. I've called the police numerous times, and they say a lot of these people are undocumented. What does that tell you? I mean, it's horrible. They've shot at police, they've run off, and they're still on the loose. And then on the Ring app, I think they're probably even on the Ring app because they're like, oh, it's just fireworks. It's fireworks. It's fireworks. No, it's not fireworks every single night. I wish it were, but it unfortunately is not.
A lot of the comments get misconstrued that he says about people coming here illegally. They're breaking our federal law to come here illegally. And that should be upsetting to everyone.
But when you make these broad generalizations, you do hurt the Haitian Americans that are here, the Mexican Americans that are here. They all get labeled and villainized and demonized.
Yeah, but you know what? I think people are finally seeing through that. It's very easy to clip up something like that and say like, oh, let's push this out here. When he's referencing these things, he's talking about people who are illegally in our country. He doesn't want us to have 350 people on the terror watch list here. There's a guy who was arrested the other day, an ISIS member who was arrested the other day, who had planned a November 5th election day attack on American citizens. ISIS was eradicated under Donald Trump. We did not even talk about it anymore. He got into the White House and he talked to his top military brass and he said, okay, you guys tell me, how long is it going to take to deal with ISIS? Because ISIS was a big threat. People were constantly talking about it, worried about terror attacks. They said, sir, it's going to take us a couple of years, maybe. You know, we have to call the White House every time we want to have some big operation. And he said, how about this? You guys just go do whatever it is you need to do. You don't need to call me. You guys are the experts. I'm not a military expert. You take care of it and let's see what happens. 4 weeks, ISIS was gone. The fact that we're talking about ISIS back in the here in the United States of America, an ISIS member should terrify everybody. The open border has been a disaster. So yeah, he's upset about it. And yes, he says things about people coming here illegally, and rightly so. And you and I, as American citizens, should be the ones absolutely infuriated that this has been allowed to happen.
I agree with you. The border is a disaster. I feel like the border is a bipartisan issue, though, because the border has been terrible under multiple administrations.
Well, we had the lowest border crossings when Donald Trump was in the White House that we've ever had.
Yes, but I still feel like it's going to take some bipartisan legislation, you know, to actually fix things at the border. You can't do executive orders. You can't do that. So how come they can't come to terms on that? And why did Donald Trump shoot down what they said was one of the most comprehensive bipartisan border bills that
if you actually read what was in there, there was like $60 billion for Ukraine. There were so many issues with that. It would allow 1.8 million illegal immigrants into our country a year. I mean, it was nonsense, honestly, Charlamagne. And we should all want a secure southern border. It's why Donald Trump built over 500 miles of border wall when he was in office. And, you know, I went down to the border wall and I saw it with my own eyes. I went down to Yuma, Arizona about a month ago. And to talk to the people in those communities, look, they say now every state is a border state because of this. The people who live in Yuma, Arizona are being so negatively impacted. If you're a pregnant woman in Yuma, Arizona, they kind of say, you may not want to plan to have a baby in our hospitals here because they're so overrun taking care of people who cross the border. It's dangerous. They say a third of women are sexually assaulted. The people there told me it's probably closer to 50% who come up over the southern border. So it's terrible for them. But because of them having to take care of all the illegal migrants coming over, you can't even be assured you're going to have a place to deliver a baby in Yuma, Arizona. They say you're going to have to drive either 2 hours to San Diego or 3 hours north to Phoenix. And so having gone and seen it with my own eyes, I'll tell you the most infuriating part to me. You have this border wall that Donald Trump built, and then laying down on the ground where you have a wide open section are pieces of the border wall that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, because they campaigned and said, we will not build another foot of Donald Trump's border wall. It's laying on the ground. And there are people who come right through there. They could stand it up right now if they wanted to, but they won't do it. That is very frustrating, I think, to see right now that we paid for that. It's right there ready to go. And if they're not leaving it on the ground, then they're selling it for, you know, pennies on the dollar.
If the bipartisan border bill was so bad, like you say, how come so many Republicans were for it until Donald Trump intervened to say no?
And first of all, how do you know he intervened and said no? Other than just hearing it from MSDNC. I almost can't even call it MS. What is it really called? MSNBC. Where else have you heard that? And besides the fact that if he has that much pull, then there's some real issues here. And second of all, why did Bernie Sanders vote no on it if it was so great? If you love Bernie Sanders, if you love, 6 Democrats voted against it. Why? Why did 6 Democrats vote against it if it was so great? Because it gave amnesty to a lot of the criminals that are already here. It billions of dollars for more war. We don't want more war. We want peace. We want peace. And also, there were also padding in all sorts of things that had nothing to do with the border, like taking away parental rights if a child wanted to transition. Why is that even in a border bill? That's bizarre. This is why that bill wasn't passed? And also, why is it that they just came up with a bill in the 11th hour anyway? Kamala has been VP for the last 3.5 years. I know she wants to pretend like this is brand new and she's the new kid on the block, but she's not. She's been in there 3.5 years. And yes, the vice president does have some pull. Yes, they do. Absolutely, 100%. She said she was in the room and a part of all of the decisions that made impact. She said that herself. So why is it that they only proposed one bill and it was just recently? Why? And the other one, yeah, in 2021, I mean, it's just terrible. Why haven't they been able to get anything accomplished? Why? And why are the people in their own party, in Kamala's own party, voting against it? Why?
I don't think Donald Trump intervened at all. He's not in an elected office right now. And
he literally told them not to do it.
That I don't think that's true. But I also no. Well, ask Donald Trump yourself. He will tell you.
That's a good question. I wonder for you, how tough is it having the last name Trump? Because you are the co-chair of the RNC.
Mm-hmm.
You do have the last name Trump. We know you're the daughter-in-law. How hard is it for you to have to always answer questions about Donald Trump?
Well, nothing prepares you for this. I can tell you, growing up where I did, I would have never expected to have the last name Trump. I certainly would have never expected to be involved in all of this. And yeah, sometimes it's challenging, but I'll tell you, I really believe when history looks back on this man, this is a man who never needed this job. You have to think back, like we were talking about before, Donald Trump was beloved by so many. He really got involved in politics because he felt he could make a positive difference. Mm-hmm. And most people would have had that first term in office and seen how much they fought against him and said, you know what, I'm not going to do this again. But he decided to come back and do it again. They indicted him, not once, but 4 times, mugshot, obviously 2 assassination attempts. And this is a man who continues fighting for this country. And I will tell you, I'm incredibly proud to be his daughter-in-law. I'm incredibly proud to have the last name Trump. Does it come with its challenges because there is a lot of negative information out there about Donald Trump? Absolutely. But a
lot of negative, dare I say, misinformation. See, a lot of times Kamala says, disinformation, misinformation, but that just means information she doesn't like. That means the truth. In this case, it's just they're lies. They're lies. He wouldn't still be able to run for office if he was as bad as Kamala likes to paint him to be. And she constantly says she's the one of peace and love and happiness. And yet she's indoctrinating her entire base to hate anybody who wants a good economy, crime-free streets, a safe border, inflation to be down, the economy to be good, to use our natural resources. I mean, that is really divisive when you think about it, for anybody to want those things, which are very common sense, practical American things. And a lot of people want that, of all different shades of skin color. And I think it's racist to say that you're racist if you want those things. Those are American values. Those are things that a lot of people want. And I think a lot of people are voting Trump secretly because they don't want to be attacked. That's how divisive Kamala is. I drive through the streets in Denver, and there's a lot of Kamala signs, but then there's a lot more blank houses. And it got me thinking, maybe all those blank houses are actually Trump, but they just don't want to be vandalized. And people say, oh, well, the Kamala people will get vandalized. No, they won't. Nothing's happened. 0 things have happened to their house or their yard sign or whatever. But I guarantee if you put up a Trump sign, people are going to run over it in your car. I mean, even at my daughter's school, people are wearing their shirts. And my daughter wanted to wear, she's 8 years old. She wanted to wear a Trump shirt to school. And I said, I mean, it'd probably be a viral video because she'd probably, get arrested or something. But I don't want to put her through that. That's scary for an 8-year-old. And I don't want that. But what's funny is her entire class and everybody, they're all Kamala, because they talk about it because they're smart. They're in the world. You can't hide it from them. And there was one boy who just started at her school, and she came home so happy yesterday. She said, remember how my entire class are Kamala lovers? I said, yeah, honey, we're still very kind. We're loving, and she said, well, not anymore. Not anymore, mommy. This really cute boy showed up, and she goes, I was mind blown because I asked him, what's your favorite thing to think about? And he said, Trump being president. I was like, what? She said, yeah. She goes, samesies. I'm like, oh, honey. I mean, I, in a way, don't want them even talking about this stuff or worried about president. But in another way, it's like it's happening in the world and you can't totally hide it from them. And then I just asked her, I said, what did he look like? So I wanted to know who it was in her class. And she's like, he's really cute. And I said, what does he look like? And she said, he's really nice. I said, well, what does he look like? And she's like, he's a black boy, mommy. And I was like, oh, see, that's awesome. There's a lot more people of all different types that want Donald Trump. But the rhetoric coming from Kamala's camp is that if you do, you're racist. So it just shuts down conversation. It's sad.
I can't think of anything better that I could be doing right now than trying to fight for the future of this country. And I really believe that when people think about their life with Donald Trump in office and their life right now, they will always say, my life was better with him in office. And we should all want a great country. And that's what I want. I want it for my kids. I want it for everybody's kids and grandkids. And it's not just about right now, it's about the future of America.
You keep saying he had a lot of celebrity friends and they turned
He
on
sure
him.
did.
How does he feel about that? Because, in the 90s, the early 2000s, everybody was hanging with Donald Trump. They were mentioning him in songs and going to his parties and all these events, but they've all have turned. How does he feel about that? Do you know?
I don't think he cares at all. I think he knows what he's doing is so important right now. And to kind of finish my point, I think when history looks back on this man, he will truly go down as one of the greatest presidents this country's ever had.
Super brave. And her point is so true. It's very important right now. That's why I've started this channel, to just speak up about this. Because in my own little way, this is the way that I can help. This is the way that I can contribute. And the way that you can contribute is to please comment, subscribe, share this video with somebody if you found value in it. That's how we can contribute. That's how we can campaign together and help. Because we all want a safe America. We all want a great place to raise our kids for generations to come. Thank you so much for being here. God bless you. God bless America.